I can still remember the sense of excitement mixed with trepidation as my friends and I approached Hollowbrook Hospital, a long-abandoned institution perched on the outskirts of town. We had heard the stories, the tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena that had plagued the place for decades. But youthful curiosity and the thrill of a dare compelled us to spend a night within its decaying walls. As we stepped into the shadowy interior of the hospital, an oppressive atmosphere settled around us, suffocating and chilling. The once white walls had yellowed with age, and the air was thick with the scent of mold and decay. Broken windows let slivers of moonlight pierce through, casting eerie patterns on the dusty floors. My friends, Jake, Sarah, and Alex, shared my unease but were determined to press on. Armed with flashlights and nervous laughter, we ventured further into the hospital's labyrinthine corridors. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint creaking of the old building settling into its own decay. Our first stop was the abandoned children's ward, a place that sent shivers down our spines. As we explored the desolate rooms, I couldn't help but notice the remnants of forgotten toys strewn about. Sarah picked up a dusty teddy bear, its button eyes staring vacantly into the darkness. We moved on, our footsteps echoing in the empty halls, until we reached the old surgical wing. The sight of rusted instruments and operating tables sent a collective shudder through our group. We tried to dismiss the unease that had settled over us, attributing it to our overactive imaginations. As the night wore on, we gathered in the hospital's dimly lit cafeteria to regroup and tell ghost stories to heighten our already heightened senses. Each tale seemed to add to the tension in the room, and we laughed nervously between gasps. It was during one of these stories that we first heard it, a faint whisper, like a distant murmur carried on the wind. We fell silent, straining to catch the source of the sound. It came again, clearer this time, a voice that seemed to beckon from somewhere within the hospital. "Did you hear that?" Alex whispered, his voice shaking. We nodded, our expressions a mixture of fear and curiosity. Against our better judgment, we followed the disembodied voice, winding through darkened corridors and up creaking staircases. It was as if the hospital itself was leading us deeper into its heart, drawing us closer to its secrets. The voice led us to a room at the end of a long, narrow hallway. The door creaked open with a sound that sent shivers down our spines, revealing a room bathed in an eerie, bluish light. At the center of the room, a flickering candle cast long, wavering shadows on the walls. And there, in the corner of the room, stood a figure, a woman dressed in a tattered, blood-stained hospital gown. Her hair hung in matted strands, and her eyes were hollow and vacant. She seemed to radiate a palpable sense of despair. "Who are you?" Jake stammered, his voice trembling. The woman didn't answer, but her gaze seemed to fixate on a spot in the room. We followed her line of sight and saw a row of old hospital beds, each one occupied by a spectral figure, patients who had long since passed away but were forever trapped within these walls. The room felt charged with a malevolent energy, as if the spirits were trapped in a never-ending cycle of suffering and torment. The woman in the tattered gown let out a mournful wail, and the other spirits joined in, their cries echoing through the room. We tried to leave, to flee the haunting scene, but the door slammed shut with a deafening crash, trapping us inside. Panic set in as we pounded on the door, desperately trying to escape the room's suffocating grip. The spectral figures advanced, their faces twisted in anguishn rage. They reached out to us with spectral hands, their touch icy and chilling. I could feel their pain, their overwhelming need to draw us into their spectral realm, to make us a part of their eternal torment. In a moment of sheer terror, I remembered the stories of a ritual that could banish restless spirits, reciting the Lord's Prayer backward while holding a blessed object. Desperation drove me to pull out a cross pendant that my grandmother had given me years ago. I began to recite the Lord's Prayer in reverse, the words stumbling from my trembling lips. The room seemed to grow colder, and the spirits wailed in agony as if the words were a weapon against them. The bluish light flickered and faded, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The door creaked open once more, and we stumbled out of the room, gasping for breath. The hospital's walls seemed to sigh in relief as if the malevolent presence that had held it in its grip had been banished, at least temporarily. We didn't waste any time leaving the hospital, our hearts pounding and our nerves frayed. The night had taken a toll on us, leaving us shaken and scarred by the horrors we had witnessed. As we drove away from the accursed place, I couldn't help but wonder if we had truly banished the malevolent spirits or if they were merely biding their time, waiting for new victims to cross their path. One thing was certain, we had stepped into a world of darkness and despair, one that would forever haunt our memories and leave us forever changed.